here is a clip of James Elder, UNICEF spokesperson. This is a video to Twitter from Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. This is the second biggest city in the country. After the Israelis attacked the Al-Shifa hospital to find the massive control center that, was I out on the day that they released those all those images of the massive control center that was there?
Yeah.
You had multiple premature babies basically having to been deserted there.
Decomposing.
5, I think, because they couldn't evacuate them in any way that would provide them oxygen. And now this guy from UNICEF is posting this video from a hospital in Khan Yunis. Again, Khan Yunis is just about to be assaulted by the IDF, second biggest city in Gaza. Of course, now I would imagine with, I don't know, 50% more of the population than normal because people have left from the north to go there. I don't know where people are going to go. But here is this UNICEF spokesperson clearly just doesn't know what to do now.
I feel like I'm running out of ways to describe the horrors hitting children here. I feel like I'm almost failing in my ability to convey the endless killing of children here. And so perhaps if the world could see those at risk, meet Khalid and Hannah. Please meet them, see them, and pray that they are alive in a few days' time.
Just horrible. You know, it's UNICEF. This is not a, I don't think they're on the terror watch list or whatever it is. I mean, you know, it's just shocking to me that people can ignore these pleas and go about their normal day. And like, I get the fact that there could be, there's plenty of people in this country who are completely disengaged from this issue at all. I mean, I don't.
Our majority are probably mostly disengaged.
Without a doubt. I mean, this country was completely ignoring for years what we were doing in Iraq, and it was our own military.
Yep.
And we were killing, responsible for the killing of hundreds of thousands of civilians, if not 1 million civilians, and the displacement of 4 million refugees, half of which were internal, half of which external at least. And people walk about their daily business. But for people who are engaged and to completely ignore these things, it is fascinating to me what has to go on in someone's mind to justify this. And one of those justifications that we hear when, and certainly I hear, in terms of the justification for what Israel is doing is the fact that Hamas targets civilians and Israel doesn't. And we keep hearing over and over again how much the Israel forces, like no other military, do they exert, no other military exerts this much effort on protecting civilian life aside from the Israelis. And first off, this claim, I think, is absolutely bunk in and of itself. But I want to show how completely meaningless it is, regardless of whether you think that claim is true. Here is an IDF spokesperson, Jonathan Conricus. He is on Aaron Burnett's show. And there was a report that the IDF had announced that 2 civilians in Gaza have been killed for every Hamas militant. Okay. And like that's the ratio, the acceptable ratio. But let's just hear it from him first before we say anything else.
To the AFP, senior Israeli military officials have said around 2 civilians have been killed for every Hamas fighter that you have successfully killed in the Gaza Strip. So that's 2 civilians for every terrorist. Can you confirm that?
I can confirm the report, and I can say that if that is true, and I think that our numbers will be corroborated, if you compare that ratio to any other conflict in urban terrain between a military and a terrorist organization using civilians as their human shield and embedded in the civilian population, you will find that that ratio is tremendously positive and perhaps unique in the world. I understand that there are
now pause it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. I just want to be clear. Let's just for the sake of argument, accept that their numbers are correct. Now, I don't know how their numbers are so correct, but let's just stipulate that for the sake of argument. And then he just layers on all of these sort of qualifications to this. Terrorist organization embedded in
urban warfare.
As if this is like, we can compare this to what? What are we comparing this to? In terms of like a civilian, we're told they're not targeting civilians, and they're proud of these numbers, 2 for 1. There were 1,200 Israelis who were killed on October 7th. By Israel's own numbers, a minimum of 30% of them were military personnel. A minimum. We know that in some instances, there may have been civilians killed who were caught in the crossfire, theoretically could have been killed by the Israelis. But put that aside, because I don't think that number is particularly high. But 30%, that is exactly the same ratio that he's talking about here. Yet Hamas targets civilians only, is the popular narrative. And Israel never targets civilians. But in the end, you have the exact same ratio that they are bragging about on national television that they've been able to maintain. And that somehow what their assault is morally more righteous. The amount of disease, the amount of displacement, the sheer number of people killed, the sheer number of those people killed who are children.
Yeah.
Do you want to compare the Hamas fighter dead to children dead? Relative to anything else?
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's a lie, we know, right? Like, I mean, that figure is just, there's no way to discern it. And especially because we're talking about 16,000 people that have died, that's an undercount as well, because there are people that have to be trapped under the rubble that are unaccounted for. That's the only people that we can.
This is like, I'm trying to be the most generous I can
possible. Exactly.
And it is just, it's insane to me.
And let's be real too. Like, when you talk about the displacement, the violence on October 7th is horrific, right? But Israel is a first world country that runs a budget surplus because the amount of money that the United States provides for military aid, and they have health care, and they have, there are videos of Israelis getting their nails done on October 9th as they cheer as bombs get rained down on Gaza. The violence for them, it occurred as a terrorist attack. But for the people in Gaza, it is rolling systemic violence that we know didn't start on October 7th and has been going on for decades. The displacement, the immiseration, obviously. But it's the continued violence that we're talking about here when we hear reports of maggots coming out of people's wounds in Gaza, and the fact that there were at a certain point when there was water cut off, healthcare workers drinking bags of saline in order to get any kind of sustenance. This is the violence that is not just calculated in the death toll. Ethnic cleansing is violence. Displacement, the 60% figure plus of homes that have been demolished that people will never be able to return to, that is violence as well. Let alone, we're not even talking about the number of injured, the amputations that have had to happen without any anesthesia, the kids that don't have arms or legs, or parents that don't have that. Like, this is not comparable in any stretch, but by any stretch of the imagination, because of all of those branches of violence that happen when you indiscriminately bomb an area that is 25 miles long and ranges from, I don't know what, like 10 to 7 miles wide in that strip. So, like, it's not comparable. He's right. But that's also because Israel's apartheid system is not comparable to any kind of warfare that he's alluding to. It's not an Israel-Hamas war. Give me an effing break. I'm sick of that framing. It is a siege. It is a indiscriminate bombing campaign on a population that has incredibly limited abilities to defend themselves, and that is inherent in what we know about the October 7th attack. Why were Hamas fighters on paraglides or whatever, paragliding into the festival? Why were they on motorcycles? As Israel has artificial intelligence, precise military systems where they can pinpoint city blocks where they're actually going to place bombs. So let's be real here about who's being precise and where you can draw comparisons.
Yeah, it really is stunning. And again, like, even if at this point they're saying they're bragging about their 2-for-1 ratio, the tens of thousands of injured who are going to be injured and maimed for the rest of their lives, many of whom will probably, I don't know what percentage of people will die from injuries that they've had now, complications later, the complete lack of a medical system within, 2/3 of the country, the idea of malnutrition, the idea of disease, the idea of lack of water. I mean, we're just at the beginning part of the destruction and the killing. There's you're not like, they could stop bombing today. They could stop their assault today, and you were going to have death and injury and disease for months, if not years, to come.
And that's when we'll need that humanitarian aid.
People.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know what would be the most efficient mode of humanitarian aid? The most targeted? A ceasefire. And then we need to begin the process of bringing anesthesia and healthcare and rebuilding homes. Like, I'm grateful for every truck of humanitarian aid that even alleviates 0.001% of suffering. But the biggest thing that needs to happen right now in terms of what actually alleviates a humanitarian disaster is stopping the bombing permanently. And then a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, obviously, afterwards. But again, like, in the immediate, that's what we're dealing with.